Hello, everyone, and welcome. My name is Adisa Stewart, and I am really grateful to have the opportunity to spend a few minutes with you today. I'd like to begin with a simple question. Can you think of a song that changed your life? Maybe it helped you through heartbreak, maybe it carried you through grief, maybe it reminded you of home when you were far away, maybe it gave you confidence before a difficult conversation, or helped you make sense of feelings you couldn't quite put into words. I think most of us can think of at least one song like that. And if that's true, then you've already experienced one of the central ideas we'll be exploring today. Music has the power to shape not only our emotions, but also our bodies, our relationships, and our sense of self. Today's presentation is called Reclaiming Personal Power Through Music, from Shame, Marginalization, and Burnout Toward Resilience. Together, we're going to explore how music can become a trauma-informed, culturally inclusive, and embodied pathway toward emotional regulation, resilience, identity, affirmation, and reconnection to ourselves. Why this conversation matters. We live in a world that often asks us to move faster than our bodies can sustain. Many of us carry tremendous responsibilities. We juggle work, family, caregiving, financial stress, community commitments, and countless expectations. We are encouraged to keep producing, keep achieving, and keep pushing forward, even when our bodies are quietly asking us to slow down. Over time, experiences like chronic stress, emotional labor, perfectionism, discrimination, exclusion, or simply trying to hold everything together can begin to affect us in ways that go far beyond our thoughts. We may notice changes in our sleep, our breathing, our energy, our concentration, or our ability to experience joy. We may find ourselves feeling emotionally exhausted, disconnected, overwhelmed, or simply numb. Many people describe this as burnout. Others describe it as feeling stuck, invisible, or disconnected from themselves. These experiences are incredibly common, but they are also deeply human. So, one of the ideas that has shaped my own work is understanding that these experiences don't just happen in our minds, they also happen in our bodies. Think about the last time you felt anxious. Perhaps your shoulders became tense. Perhaps your breathing became shallow. Your jaw tightened. Your stomach felt unsettled. Or maybe you noticed something different. Perhaps you became emotionally numb. You couldn't find the words to express what you were feeling, so you withdrew from people you care about. Our bodies are constantly responding to our experiences, often long before we consciously recognize what's happening. This is one of the reasons I approach wellness through a somatic lens. The word somatic simply means relating to the body. It reminds us that our emotions, our memories, stress, and even our resilience are experienced through our whole selves, not just through our thoughts. So when we begin paying attention to the body with curiosity rather than judgment, we often discover that many of our responses make sense. They're not signs that something is wrong with us. They're signs that our nervous systems have been working very hard to help us adapt, protect ourselves, and survive. That understanding creates space for compassion. Instead of asking, "What's wrong with me?" we begin asking a different question. What has my body learned through my experiences, and what might it need now to feel more supported? And that's where music begins to enter the conversation. Rather than us seeing music as simply something we consume, we can begin to experience it as a resource, a way of reconnecting with our bodies, our emotions, our stories, and our sense of possibility. In the next section, we'll take a closer look at one experience that often sits quietly beneath burnout, self-doubt, and disconnection: shame. We'll explore how shame becomes embodied, how it's connected to chronic stress, and why understanding it differently can open new pathways toward healing and resilience. Understanding shame as an embodied experience through a somatic lens. So, as we continue, I'd like to invite you to think about shame in a slightly different way than we often do. When people hear the word shame, they often think about guilt or embarrassment. But while those experiences can overlap, they're not exactly the same. Guilt is usually connected to something we've done. It says, I made a mistake. Shame, on the other hand, often says, there is something wrong with me. The difference matters. Shame has the power to shape not only how we think about ourselves, but also how we move through the world. It can influence whether we speak up or remain silent, whether we ask for help or struggle alone, whether we allow ourselves to rest or believe we always have to prove our worth. From a somatic perspective, shame is much more than an emotion, it is an embodied experience. Think about the time when you felt embarrassed, rejected, criticized, or judged. What did you notice in your body, right? So our bodies are constantly communicating with us. And shame often leaves a physical imprint. It doesn't just change what we think, it changes how we breathe, how we move, how we stand, how we hold ourselves, how much space we allow ourselves to take up, and even how safe it feels to be seen. But here's something I think is incredibly important. From a trauma-informed perspective, shame isn't simply something to eliminate. Very often, it begins as a protective response. As humans, we are wired for connection. We need belonging, we need acceptance, we need relationships that help us feel safe. So when our nervous system experiences loss or rejection, etc., or in environments where belonging feels uncertain, it begins adapting in ways that increase our chances of staying connected and staying safe. Sometimes those adaptations look like becoming quieter. Sometimes they look like working harder than everyone else. Or they look like becoming the caregiver that never asks for help. Sometimes it also looks like perfectionism. Sometimes they look like constantly saying yes because saying no doesn't feel safe, right? So these responses aren't signs that we're weak. They're signs that our nervous systems have been doing their best to help us survive. Understanding that can be incredibly liberating. Instead of asking what's wrong with me, we can asking that what happened to me? Or perhaps even more gently, what has my body learned that once helped me survive? That shift from judgment to curiosity is one of the foundations of trauma-informed care. Now, let's widen the lens. Shame doesn't develop in isolation. It is deeply influenced by the environment we live and work in. Over time, many people begin carrying invisible burdens. They work harder to prove themselves, they silence their needs, they suppress emotions, they keep pushing through exhaustion because stopping doesn't feel like an option, right? It can feel like losing access to joy, feeling disconnected from your purpose, struggling to experience creativity, feeling emotionally numb, or wondering why things that once brought us life no longer do. The good news is that if the nervous system can learn patterns of protection, they can also learn patterns of safety. They can learn regulation, they can learn connection, they can learn joy again, they can learn rest, and they can learn resilience. And one of the many ways we can begin supporting that process is through music. So we're going to explore music as a pathway toward reconnection. Now that we have explored shame and burnout, I'd like to shift our attention towards something that has accompanied humanity for thousands of years, music. Music has always been much more than entertainment. Long before streaming services, concerts, playlists, people use music to tell stories, preserve history, celebrate important moments, mourn losses, celebrate new life, express emotions, strengthen community, resist oppression, and pass cultural knowledge from one generation to the next. Across cultures, music has helped people survive. It has helped people remember who they are. It has helped people express what couldn't always be spoken. Have you ever noticed that certain songs can immediately transport you to another place or time? A song remind you of your childhood. It can bring you back to someone you love. It can remind you of a difficult season you have survived. It can fill you with hope during an important conversation. Or it can simply make your body want to move before your mind has even caught up. It engages your whole being. So rhythm can influence our breathing, melody can evoke memory, harmony can create a sense of comfort, lyrics can help name emotions that have been difficult to express, movement can help release tension that words alone cannot reach. So when we begin paying attention to these responses, music becomes more than something we listen to, it becomes something we experience. And that experience can support us in reconnecting with ourselves. One of the things I appreciate most about music is that every culture has developed its own way of using sound, rhythm, movement, and collective expression to support well-being. Although the traditions themselves are beautifully diverse, they often share something in common, which is they recognize that healing is relational. For example, here in the Caribbean, we see this in reggae, dancehall, soca, and calypso music. So these aren't simply musical genres. They are expressions of Caribbean history, identity, resistance, celebration, storytelling, and community. They create spaces where people move together, sing together, laugh together, grieve together, and remember together. Across the Latin and the African diaspora, dance traditions remind us that movement itself can be a form of emotional expression, resilience, celebration, and social connection. These examples are not about suggesting that one culture has all the answers. Rather, they remind us that across geography, language, and history, many people have consistently turned to music as a way of caring for themselves and caring for one another. That brings us to an important realization. There isn't one kind of music that's good for everyone all the time. There isn't one, just as our emotional needs change from day to day, the music that supports us may also change. Sometimes we need music that helps us slow down, or music that helps us cry, or music that reminds us of our strength, or music that reconnects us with joy. That's why in the workshop, I invite participants to think less about their favorite genre and more about what their nervous system needs in that moment. Different musical traditions can invite different emotional experiences. For example, R&B and soul create spaces for tenderness, vulnerability, emotional honesty, and self-compassion. Hip hop has long been a space for truth-telling, resistance, identity, creativity, and reclaiming voice in the face of adversity. Reggae reminds us of endurance, hope, grounding, spirituality, and collective resilience. Soca invites celebration, movement, freedom, joy, and the powerful reminder that pleasure and healing can coexist together. Afrobeats invokes confidence, vitality, expansion, rhythm, and embodied presence. Reggaeton can invite confidence, assertion, sensuality, and reconnecting with personal agency. K-pop reminds us that music can also create motivation, belonging, collective energy, and meaningful connection across cultures and across borders. Of course, no, no musical genre can be reduced to a single emotion or experience. Every song tells its own story. So, this is an invitation to simply become curious, to notice what happens in your breathing, what's happening in your body, which songs help you feel grounded, which songs help you grieve, which songs help you rest, which songs make you want to move. So we begin by listening in this way. So when we begin by listening in this way, music becomes more intentional. It becomes part of our well-being practices rather than simply the soundtrack playing in the background of our lives. And perhaps one of, that's one of the greatest gifts music offers us, right? Not an escape from our lives, but a deeper way of returning to ourselves. As we close, I'd like to return to the question we started with. Can you think of a song that changed your life? Perhaps your answer has changed over the last few minutes. Maybe you're thinking of a different song now. Or maybe you're beginning to think differently about why that song mattered in the first place. One of the hopes I have for this presentation is that it encourages us to become more intentional about the role music plays in our lives. Not simply entertainment, not simply as something playing in the background while working or driving, but as something we can intentionally engage as part of our everyday well-being. Many of us already use music in this way without realizing it. So, the invitation here is to simply become more conscious of that relationship. What would it look like if we intentionally created playlists for different emotional needs? A playlist for grounding when life feels overwhelming, a playlist for grief when words feel inadequate, a playlist for joy that reminds us that our bodies are allowed to experience pleasure and celebration. People also gather for concerts, festivals, places of worship, celebrations, vigils, and cultural events. We exchange playlists with friends. We dedicate songs to people we love. Sometimes we don't even have the words to tell someone we're thinking about them, but we send them a song. Music becomes one of the languages to which we care for one another. In that sense, music isn't only a self-care practice. It reminds us that we don't have to carry everything alone. It reminds us that our stories are connected. And it reminds us that healing often happens in relationship with ourselves, with others, and with the communities that hold us. This brings us back to the title of today's presentation, Reclaiming Personal Power. When people hear the word power, they often think about control, achievement, status, or influence. But that's not the kind of power I'm talking about here today. The kind of power I'm talking about is much quieter. It's the power to recognize what your body is telling you, the power to honor your emotions instead of judging them, the power to rest without believing you have to earn it, the power to express yourself honestly, to reconnect with joy, and to even ask for support. And perhaps most importantly, the power to remember that surviving difficult experiences may have changed you, but they do not define you. Shame often tells us to hide. Burnout often tells us to keep pushing. Music, at its best, can gently interrupt those messages. It can remind us of who we are. It can reconnect us with memories of hope. It can give us language to emotions we haven't yet found words for. It can invite us back into our bodies, back into relationship, back into community, back into ourselves. And that to me is what reclaiming personal power looks like. So I'd like to leave you with one final reflection. The next time you reach for music, pause for just a moment and ask yourself, what does my body need today? Do I need grounding? Do I need rest? Courage, joy, hope? Do I need to grieve? Do I need to feel connected? So let that question guide your listening. You may discover that music becomes much more than something you hear. It becomes something that helps you breathe a little deeper, right? So thank you for spending this time with me today. I hope that this conversation encourages you to continue exploring music as a resource for emotional regulation, resilience, self-care, and community care. As you leave, I invite you to explore the curated YouTube playlist I've prepared. My hope is that it becomes much more than a collection of songs. I hope it becomes a companion, a resource that you can return to whenever you need grounding, encouragement, reflection, celebration, or simply a reminder that you are not alone. Thank you, and I wish you continue well-being in your journey.